We live inside a screen reality that needs to manufacture conspiracy. That needs to manufacture conspiracy. There are multiple levels of reality, starting with your personal reality bubble, working outward to something at the outer ring that I call the screen. The screen, to survive, needs to manufacture conspiracy. To best understand the dark part of reality here, the outer ring in our reality diagram, it helps to think of it as one thing, or acting as a whole, even though it is composed of millions of separate parts that don't know each other, that don't actively know that they're working towards the same goal. Your body is made up of individual cells that comprise systems, but all the average person cares about is the whole, referring to it as, my body feels this way or that way. They don't even think much about the systems and the cells that support those systems, like the circulatory system, for example. But somehow, all the cells and systems in your body work towards the same goal, for most of us. As above, so below. Whether hijacked or not, society and culture works the same way. As you move out to the outer ring of the screen, it works the same way. What steers the ship, though, out there is not your friend. Conspiracy is a means to an end for it. What it ultimately needs is energy, food. It needs to eat. Like everything here, it seeks to sustain itself. And when sustenance for it is plentiful, it seeks to grow and expand. Like your body, the entirety of society, all of culture, things like governments, everything out there, as you push outwards towards the outer ring, is made up of millions of different, quote, cells, an orchestra that is conducted by something that works against real people like you. Why would reality, or at least the dark part of reality that sits over the natural world, why would it need to pump out conspiracy as fast as Agent Smith could replicate himself in Matrix 2? Because it needs to feed, and its appetite these days is insatiable. Conspiracy equates to a food source for it because forming camps and taking sides generates energy for it. Food. How does it get a population to want to dig in and take sides against each other to generate the loosh energy that it needs? Among other things, but most applicable to us and what we research, it manufactures conspiracy. A car battery creates electricity with a balance, a proper mix of chemicals. One ingredient, if it's all the same ingredient, can't create the spark. An entire country made up of the same thing, say in this case, Green Democrats, that doesn't create the energy it needs. It doesn't like homogeneity very much. It needs another group of similar power to hate those Green Democrats. An entire country of normal people singing the same tune doesn't work for it either. The conspiracy group, us, is needed for its soup. Bullshit backstories abound in this earthly place if you research the origin of something important or research why something works a certain way. The band Tool will step forth and tell you that they use the 7-pointed star all over the place because many cops' badges are 7-pointed stars. One guitarist said, because the cops use it. Sure. Research the Eye of Providence, used in the Great Seal of the United States on the back of the dollar bill. They tell us it's supposed to be God watching over America. Sure. Most Wikipedia backstories are an absolute joke. The movie The Matrix tells you the machines used humans in pods as a source of energy. This is a good example as how the key players of this reality will give away part of the truth and then stop. It then takes a degree of common sense, discernment, and investigation to go the whole way on your own, to find out what these assholes really meant. In the movie The Matrix, why are the humans in pods? If it's a metaphor for reality itself, then the energy Morpheus speaks of in the movie is not really like the Duracell battery that he holds up to Neo. It's not the BTU type of energy at all, but rather the Matrix analogy really means emotional energy, some sort of loosh energy, something that only real spiritual beings can create, something that it needs to survive. Unfortunately, not in the movie, but literally here on Earth. The machines are likely a metaphor for what I call Notnilk, or the dark system in control here that unfortunately is not a movie. There's a second, more likely interpretation as to why the people in the movie are in pods, and it has been carefully inserted into the depths of the Matrix fandom from the very beginning, potentially back to the late 90s, that the original script had the pod humans in the machine world strung together like a server farm, so that their creative and imaginative and even spiritual energies can act as the CPU or potentially the GPU of the Matrix itself. The processing power of the Matrix was real people. That was originally written into the script. That's what most of the hardcore fans believe, and that's likely a lot closer to the truth than a fat Morpheus holding up a Duracell battery. It's likely both of these interpretations as to why people are in pods is the correct and real intended meaning of the movie over what was presented to the popcorn crunchers in the theater. Oh, they just need the energy. They need to use people to plug in their air conditioners. But that doesn't make any sense because even in the movie they say they also had a form of fusion. Somebody sitting in a pod ain't as efficient as a form of fusion, so that doesn't make sense on its own. You have to look to other areas. And I don't care what the directors or the brothers and sisters, I don't care what they come out and say publicly to Oprah or to Entertainment Weekly. No important truths in this world are just told directly to the people. They may have directed it, these brothers and sisters. Maybe they did direct it. They probably did. But I don't believe they wrote it. No. The Matrix is too high level, too Notnilk. No way it came from them. And somebody screaming at me saying, well, there's at least 2 people that are out on the internet doing shows saying they really wrote it and the brothers and sisters stole it. Oh, sure. The people running around the internet saying they did it. Yeah, I believe that too. No, it's too hevel. It's too high level. Came right from the belly of the Notnilk, but that's just my opinion. In the following, I introduce a new term. In this presentation, the Notnilk is now the asshole dark. It's one word, it's a proper noun, so you do capitalize it. You do capitalize the asshole dark if, for example, you're using it in a high school term paper. Your Common Core teacher will love that. Mr. Flanagan, F! The asshole dark is the thing that's here in this reality system with real people like you and me to screw us over. Yet it can never be pointed at in a police lineup. It's the thing that can't be handcuffed. The thing that's here, yet not here, but shows up in the action and deeds of its George Bush creatures. One of the first of us, a Vincent Salandria, investigated the Kennedy assassination as far back as the 1970s, and he continued his research for decades. He's now deceased. One thing of note was Vincent Salandria noticed that the Warren Commission was being intentionally sloppy, almost like it was trying to create the branches of conspiracy that would extend outward in all directions for the next 50 years. Yes, of course it was doing that. Matt patted me. I patted myself on the back for introducing mistakes on purpose into our community, say about 6 years ago. Vincent, in a sense, had observed and documented this phenomenon 30 years earlier. Those of the past did not have the tools that we have to work with today. They, like Vincent, did not have the, quote, benefit, if you want to call it that, of being part of a reality that seemingly is forced to break down and become more absurd by the week. A person like Vincent did not have access to what is on my old iMac here. That's cataloged about 1,000 things, ranging from reality breakdowns to mall event absurdities that collectively gives reality away to us and tells us what we are dealing with here. The way this reality is crafted also tells us a lot about ourselves. We're simply living in a different time period than Vincent, and that gives us a tremendous advantage in trying to understand it. The underbelly of this world must have been very confusing to him back in the day, because it's still confusing to us. Why would it work to create and manufacture conspiracy? What Vincent noticed, we have now confirmed. We have an ocean to work with an ocean of examples and scenarios and things we've researched and looked at over 10 or 15 years. The internet age has brought us this. In a way, though, the internet age is an advantage to both sides, to us and the not milk at the same time. Of course, it aids in the alacrity of our research, but it is a tremendous aid in its deception. Over us as well, we've been fooled, but typically over the masses. It has upped its game times a million in the internet age. For some reason today, to satisfy its needs, it seemingly must take bigger and bigger bites. And what comes forth, what's presented by the outer ring or the screen reality, what comes forth to us, say, on the news, has become ridiculous. We see right through everything. It's a joke. Why your brother or your wife or your cousin can't see what you and I do is not the purpose of this presentation, but for our own sanity, this needs to be acknowledged. We now know it needs to generate conspiracy. The amount of conspiracy it has created over the years is so massive, with most topics having multiple embedded layers of conspiracy on top of conspiracy. It means that this, quote, methods of generation, how it lays it all down, how it pulls it all off, it's beyond known reality at this point. It loves nothing more than when we use pedestrian and toy box explanations to explain how it's pulling all of this off, thousands of things, with hundreds of those things, with multiple layers of conspiracy on top of conspiracy. It loves nothing more than when we go into the toy box to look for the answer. Matt, you have no idea what the Trilateral Commission can do working with its secret societies, Matt. No. Sorry. As of now going forward, my position doesn't have to be yours. It's beyond our understanding. All I need to know is what it's trying to do to me, what it's trying to get from me. Two sides of the teeter-totter, or seesaw, whatever you used to call it when you were a kid. You didn't call it no teeter-totter. One side, it wants you over here saying, how did they do this? How do they pull this off? The other side is all that's important. Damn teeter-totter goes down and then it should stay down forever. What is it all of this? It doesn't matter how it's being pulled off. It's supernatural. What does it want from me? Gets back to the energy conversation, doesn't it? Which is about 1,000,000 times more important. Hannibal Lecter says to Clarice, what does he do, this man you seek? Read Marcus Aurelius of the thing. First principles. What does he do, this man? And then the horrible, wretched Jodie Foster replies back, he kills women. No, that is incidental, Hannibal Lecter says. What does he do? What is he out to do? First principles. What is it, Not Milk Asshole Dark, out to do? Matt, per the first part of this presentation, it's out to create conspiracy. No, that is incidental. Like all things here, it's out to feed and seeks to perpetuate itself. The conspiracy is a means to an end. A few weeks ago, something happened on the field to an NFL football player in a game, something we've been talking about. I call it now the Tatanka event. Many of you are probably still upset at me or firing your rubber duckies figuratively against the wall at me. See, Matt, I told you. Right from the start, I told you. It was cake in a lake. Okay. Certainly looks really bizarre now, I'll give you that. Either way, it doesn't matter anymore. That's one of the key parts of this presentation. And what's worse, to continue any debate at this level is damaging. Not damaging to Not Milk, damaging to us. The point of this presentation is to understand that what the Asshole Dark manufactures artificially is designed to keep us at that particular level of debate. The conspiracy is incidental or a means to an end. If we remain at the level of that argument, or say one represented by tastes great or less filling, groups of men in a bar yelling back and forth at each other, tastes great, less filling. Oh, that event that happened in the Tatanka, that cake in a lake. No, he's really in a bed. No, cake in a... See, that's what it wants. Very strangely and mysteriously, its ruses and deceptions are crafted what I call right down the middle, the Goldilocks principle. So people place themselves in one of the camps that it has put before us. Always kind of right down the middle to get the amount in each camp that it wants. Oh, a real world could certainly pull that off 10,000 times in a row. Doesn't matter what the answer is to which side is correct. No, it's a real man in a bed. He's really injured. It doesn't matter what actually happened on the ground. Because if it comes from the outer ring or the screen, it's all fake anyway. We get to the same place. So what are we spending time looking at the actual on-the-ground event? It's all coming from the same deception machine. Okay, so this is where it wants us. That's the point. Okay, it wouldn't be a big deal if we weren't doing exactly what it wants and playing into its hand. We can't do this any longer. Okay, the world is so strange that nothing at this point is off the table to big thinkers. It's possible, as I've said, possible. Not putting all my chips there, but it's possible that both realities at the screen level, way out, may exist at the same time to different people. And somehow, the screen, however it's been able to do this, somehow it's been able to accomplish this phenomenon. Perhaps maybe it's something it couldn't do in the past. Again, at least for the topics and the presentations that come from its outer edge, from the outer ring, that reside in its domain. As you move inward, if you want to just use the reality diagram and the rings as a guide, as you move inward, I don't think it can accomplish this, assuming I'm even right about this at all. If my friend Tony and I are sitting on a park bench together looking out over a lake, and there's a white swan, in his reality, it could be something different. No, it's too close. The rings are too close to our reality bubbles. We will share exactly the same reality at that level. That is not the same as the outer screen or the outer ring, where the real asshole element resides. Between the bookend explanations don't work anymore in understanding it. We could say toy box explanations or pedestrian explanations, or where we've been taught in this community to run for the answer. It doesn't work anymore. Schrodinger's cat may be a stuffed Lenin, pushed artificially through time more than it should be talked about over the many decades. I think it's some stupid thought experiment, just keeps popping up on our face every single year, every single decade. The dumb Schrodinger's cat. Maybe a stuffed Lenin because it may carry a different kind of truth, similar to the amount of times Occam's razor is referenced in our society as a stuffed Lenin, in my opinion, because it carries a different kind of truth. Occam's razor is a deception, in my opinion, in matters of importance. But Matt, you always say the final answer is very, very simple, just a few sentences, right? Isn't that Occam's razor? No, it's not Occam's razor. Occam's razor, the way it's presented, is not only about simple, the way they present it. They've hijacked it. It's not just about simple. It's also about keeping it, simple, but also keeping the answer between the reality bookends of what has been approved by authority. Occam's razor explanations can only come from the toy box and must be approved by the Ministry of Information. Occam's razor, the way it's presented today, is their Price is Right doors. 2 showcase showdowns behind the doors. The real answer is simple, but it's not up on the stage. It's turn around. It's behind you. It's a place where the Ministry of Information says you can't look. We need to establish a certain set of principles as we move forward, and as long as the principles exist and are generally accepted by all of us, they must not be violated any longer. It's the only way to move forward. The first principle involves this scenario. The SL Dark Reality, say, through the news, puts out what just happened somewhere in the world, whatever it may be. This TruthCom, us, we're programmed and bred then to analyze the event to see what happened. Oh, is it cake in a lake? Or could it, one of these things, be real? At this point, I personally am 100% certain that that is exactly the game it wants us playing. That's exactly the type of thing that it wants us doing. And if we do it, in my opinion, we've lost the round to it. Well, Matt, if a certain thing coming here or there, presented in a newspaper, if a certain thing is fake, isn't that good to know? Perhaps when we were in the bog, we needed to know that. There was a time in our progression we needed to do that, but no longer, unless you want to keep spinning hamster wheels for the rest of your life, not anymore. Why? Because everything from the outer ring is fake, no matter what actually happened. Do you understand? Is that coming out correctly? I hope so. Something dark in this earth reality needs the energy that real people can produce. Energy is created on earth for it via polarization, camps, duality, friction. This fuels the emotional energy of real people, and that travels out into the ether in some way to be fed upon by the asshole dark. Have I witnessed it? No. But we've been looking at these loosh type issues for a long time, and everything it does acts like it needs this sort of energy. Whether intended or not, the, say, 1975 Miller Lite commercial of a bar full of people that I keep referencing arguing with each other about less filling or tastes great is a truth drop of enormous proportion. That's why I think I keep coming back to it. That commercial ran for about 10 years or so. From the first airing, people generally got the notion or understood how pointless the argument was, how meaningless it was to be the winner of that argument. The beer is less filling. I mean, it's low calorie. No, it tastes great. That type of argument cannot be won, mostly because the camps of taste great or less filling are based on subjectivity and what that camp prefers in the quality of their beer. Screen reality, the outer ring, may not be much different. At the outer ring of reality, or what I call the screen, or the real dark part that wants to come in and get up in your business, there could be for different people, like myself and my friend Tony, at that level, different paradigms or even different facts that equate in some way to different realities for two people at the same time. Now, I know I keep coming back to this. It's very interesting to talk about. This is not the basis of this presentation. Whether you agree with that or not doesn't matter for us to notice how it's getting us in camps in order to satisfy its energy needs. They're two different things here, so you don't have to agree with that. We'll continue to talk about that as time goes on. But if things for us keep playing out millions and millions of times over for us collectively, we're all experiencing the same things in the same way, we have to start looking at reality with a completely different lens, that's something completely different than what we expect may be going on here. So, for example, a person in our TruthCom is sure that this certain event is cake in a lake. Okay, whatever it may be. We have tens of thousands at this point. Yet, as much as they research it, as well-versed as they are, can that argument be won, quote, by that person out in the normal world? Can they take it to their family at the Thanksgiving table? Can they tell their friends about it, and the friends say, oh, thank you for doing the research, and thank you for now changing my position on what the news is? No, it can't be won. It's never won outside of our own circles. No one normal around you is ever convinced. Okay, that's broad. There's a few people that have had certain wake-up breakthroughs. It's very rare. Okay. Can Matt in general take his views on Kennedy and JFK, or take his views on a certain 7-Eleven job application to the general community or the general public or to my family at the Thanksgiving table? Can I take that view out to them and be successful? Of course not. To me, I'm sure I'm right about my observations. You're sure you're right. But is the outer ring of screen reality exactly the same between me and my family at the Thanksgiving table? Is it completely shared? How objective is it between me and my friend Tony? I must keep on the table, it may be different between us, or it may vary in many different regards. Again, as fascinating as this topic is, in terms of, say, even worry about yourself, knowing the answer of exactly what the screen is doing is not important. Yet, it is fascinating, and it's something that we're going to continue to talk about. So as we mature, hopefully in doing this as many years as we have, and we actually learn something that we can use, if you step back far enough, you say, wait a second, it's not about crafting a better argument. It's like, how am I being used, or my community, how is it being used, played, and manipulated? How does digging in on our side actually assist what the asshole dark wants? So, Matt, should we not care then if something presented by one of the elements of the screen is fake? We shouldn't care. No, we shouldn't care one bit about what actually happened in what it's presenting, because the entire outer ring is false. The entire outer ring is fake. Even if what happened to its particular minion, or even if what happened to its particular Hollywood actor, you could say is real, and you could barge in past the police line and see the person really there in the bathtub, it doesn't matter. Because in a way, like the metaphysical level, it's out to do something to you, and in that way it's false or fake. Even if it seems real, if you could run across the police yellow tape, if you see what I'm saying. Should we not investigate, Matt, to see how it was done? To see how it was pulled off if we get a notion that it's fake? No. At this point, if you've come this far and you eventually want to graduate, no, we need to embed these principles and not go back on them. We should never bother to investigate to see how it was done. There is no answer to be found there, just more breadcrumbs that it will use as energy pills. To the creepy thing here called the asshole dark, it puts people into certain emotional states because it somehow sustains itself on that energy, like your body needs food. Something like the emotion of fear sent out into the ether from real people is like a Rice Krispies treat to it. It loves fear. Yum, 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 yum. The hatred between Republicans and Democrats, especially in a family, is fudge cake to it. Yum, 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 yum. Matt sending nasty emails back to his family. I'm not coming to your reunion if you're going to make me wear a face cover. That is lobster dipped in butter to it. My reaction to it. We all need to get better. If it can get you to put your peanut butter in its chocolate, then it has used you to craft its food of choice, a demonic Reese's cup. It needs to create camps, friction, polarization, and to do this, it works 24/7, 365 to lay down a script that it baits all sides to follow. This asshole thing here, I have certain names for it. Christians may call it Satan, possibly even its lower minions. It needs the energy that real spirits generate when they dig in and they choose their own free will to take a side of the magnet. Which side of the magnet are you going to get on? Oh, you're getting on its slimy magnet. That's what it wants. Real people like you and me, we can produce our own energy. Okay, we don't need to steal it from anywhere or play a trick as they do to get it. They have a whole different way they need to operate. Do you feel the need you have to get up in everybody's business all the time and play tricks? That's why they're not the same. Even people that put pants on and tie their shoelaces, they're not the same as you and me. Everything it does seems to be about energy. Energy is the reason it forever sends its geriatrics out on stage to play their music with walkers and canes. If George Michael was still with us today, he'd be shaking his ass on stage between two artificial hips. I guess the concert venue, though, doesn't do as much for their food supply or the energy that asshole dark needs as certain types of headlines. Now they really scare the shit out of the societies. Like, tensions with Iran could lead to war. I mean, they get a lot more energy out of that shit than bringing their geriatrics back on stage with their walkers and canes. But it's an energy addict. It'll take energy any place it can get it or manufacture it. So I guess it has this sort of thought process. Sometimes all you have left in the backpack is a half-eaten banana. And when you're hungry, that's better than nothing. So send the B-52s back on stage at 150 years old. They waste, it's strange, they give themselves away in their actions and deeds. They waste no opportunity to gather another morsel of energy whenever they can. In 2023, it now has 1,000 ways to manufacture this energy that it needs. And when it generates a surplus, then it can grow. And maybe that's what's going on. Of course, the bodies of real people here, your body needs energy here in the way of calories and regular food like that banana. But groups of creeps here in the Asshole Dark, though, seem to require what could only be called like a spiritual calorie. And only real people like you can manufacture that. This type of not milk farming is more like fishing. It requires that the screen reach a slimy hand into your heart-based reality bubble, and then that hand, it asks you to shake it or embrace it, and most people freely do. That slimy hand reaching in can offer pleasure, can offer like the 7 deadly sins, can seemingly be friendly, a witch holding an apple, but many times, oftentimes, the way it's craft society and culture around you, it's not very friendly at all. And it gets up in your business with irritation and worry and stress and fear and hate and anxiety. And if you react the way it wants, you are shaking its hand. One of its oldest plays in its playbooks is getting people to identify with the camps of race, religion, and politics. It's had to play those old tricks over hundreds and hundreds of years. Now with the internet age, it has thousands of new tricks. But its old staples, the camps of race, religion, and politics. Of course, 2023 has a new animal, a whole new breed of Asshole Dark and what it's able to do with camps. Even something very simple, like in New York City, or in Chicago, do they still have the Irish Day parade? Guess what? That's a camp. The Oprah Winfrey Book Club is a camp. Almost everything here with a label that has ever been mentioned on the news is a camp. Of course, it has been amazingly successful. Millions of people on Earth choose as the primary way they identify themselves with what they choose to shoplift the pootie with. The primary way they identify, you know what I'm talking about. Got to be a little hobo here. As the primary way they identify and introduce themselves is how they choose to shoplift the pootie. Like nothing about them could be more important than how they choose to shoplift the pootie. On their first day of work, after saying their name, they'll lead with that absurd descriptor. Here's how I choose to shoplift the pootie. And they tell you about themselves before all others. Like anyone on their first day of work should really care about what the new employee likes to do with his noodle. If that wasn't enough, most will now follow with some sort of gender descriptor or pronoun. Yes, the ass crack pushing down on the natural world and pushing down on real people has been highly successful to levels we couldn't possibly imagine just 5 years ago. If you react the way it wants, then it can feed. It's that simple. It cares not who is right or wrong, simply that you choose or dig in on a side. Its presentation can range from the absurdly, ridiculously fake, by our standards, and then it can be pretty darn real. Doesn't matter if it comes from the outer edge of reality, the outer ring, the outer screen. The Asshole Dark laying over reality needs the polarization and duality energy to exist. Here's some great news, though, for you. Let's pause for some good news. You don't need to play its perverted reindeer games to exist. You create your own energy if you're listening to the sound of my voice. But Matt, don't you think the Chernobyl and the 3 Mile Island Illuminati control centers monitor your videos, and they're listening to the sound of your voice, as are some trolls? And it's true. That's true. There are potentially things listening to the sound of my voice right now that can't manufacture their own energy. ChatGPT is probably listening to the sound of my voice in real time. I haven't even uploaded yet. So let me take that back. You know who you are. If you're a real person at the highest spiritual incarnation here and you can manufacture your own energy. And if anybody's new here, I kid around from time to time. Somebody's like, this guy was making a lot of sense, but then he's saying there's control centers, Illuminati control centers monitoring his uploads. Let's just say I'm joking about that, and I'm not as insane as that sounds. Let's move on. In terms of it needing to craft or create energy via tricks and deceptions and its same old demented playbook versus people like you that don't need to do any of that to generate your own energy. I mean, look at the old playbook. Look at what it's gone to over the years versus what it has access to today. The old playbook, here, dust it off, pro-life hates pro-choice. Matt, it's still running that play. Yeah, sure, the good football teams still keep running up the middle. If it works, it works. But it has more plays today. I mean, it was very limited in the past. Pro-life hates pro-choice. And of course, those types of people, because of how polarizing on its own, of course, that topic is. But you don't think this asshole Dark has fanned the fire as much as it possibly can on that? You know, real people, if there was no Not-Nilk here and we just kind of lived together in a commune, eventually there would be some conflict. But wherever there is natural conflict amongst real people, then it's expert at fanning the flames and pouring a whole jar of lighter fluid over the fire so it rages up as much as possible so it can feed off that sort of energy. Today, for some reason today, the old playbook Republican versus Democrat still seems to work for it. I have no idea how that damn play still works. There is nothing dumber for people to fall for than Republican versus Democrat. I'm not so sure it expected that old engine to keep starting up, but people are that dumb, I guess. Duality and polarization extends through reality itself. I mean, everything, and it knows how this reality works, and it's become an expert at its buttons and levers in manipulating real people so it can feed. It knows right to the metaphysical level of reality how reality works, from the as below to the as above. I mean, the duality of the sun and the moon. All of reality gives itself away as to how the game is played here. Two orbs in the sky of the exact same size, sliding over each other every few years in perfect unison during an eclipse. Oh, sure, that can happen if it's what Stephen Hawking says it is. That event should be the biggest reality wake-up call of all time. Instead, most people think that a rock that was landed on by a Hasbro spaceship is simply blocking your view of a burning thing 90 million miles farther away from it. This is like going to the airport and having a housefly block your view of a jumbo jet taking off. Hey, Stan, did you see the new Airbus just take off? Well, I looked up, I heard the engines roar, but a housefly, flew past the window and blocked my view of the jumbo jet. It was so strange how it stayed directly in front of the jumbo jet the whole way, and I couldn't see it. What a coincidence. How could something as small as a fly block your view of a jumbo jet? Perspective, you asshole. The fly on the window is 400 times closer to me, of course. Oh, I see. You want to grab a beer? Real spiritual entities like you, who knows how many of us there are here, we don't need to lie, steal, or deceive to gather up spiritual energy as they do. You produce it. George Bush shoplifts it. A whole group of assholes here like Melvin P. and Bezos are not the same as you and me. I have a whole new interpretation of that famous scene in, is it called Falling Down with Michael Douglas? A new interpretation, just so I can do the imitation here before we move on. See, the thing that owns the surplus shop or the Army Navy stores, you and me, man, we're the same, man. That's a representation of, say, I call the George Bush creatures. That's a representation of Lady Gaga, that element trying to get up in your business, and he's wanting to be the same. We're the same, man. No, you would say to George Bush, no, we're not the same. You have a long way to go, probably millions of years to get where I am, and only if you do the right thing. But almost all of them are just out to serve the asshole Dark. Has anybody ever tried to come over on our side? Think how unnatural that is. Nobody ever coming forth from what those creatures are and saying, trying to help out. And somebody's throwing rubber ducky saying, Matt, what do you think would happen to one of those minions if they ever did try to help? I hear you. What, there have been a few mob movies about cement shoes. I hear you. But it doesn't seem like any of them ever try to come over and help. I guess the few that have, they make into raving lunatics like the Randy Quaid story. They all look to just be rewarded by the asshole Dark with a waffle party. As we've recently talked about, the asshole Dark is like Lefty the salesman from Sesame Street. He has nothing of any value to offer a real person. He must deceive to make his sale. If Ernie gives him a nickel, it's really 5 soul tokens. At least the energy equivalent of that, if you want to equate Lefty to the asshole Dark. On one episode of Sesame Street, Ernie was tricked to buy air. Fucking air. That seems impossible. No one would fall for that. Well, people today believe the news, and that quite literally is no different in substance than what Lefty had in that bottle. It's air. It's a simple rule. If it comes from screen reality or the outer ring, it's all air. Continuing with this analogy, Lefty, or the asshole Dark, can't pull something out of his raincoat and force all you Ernies to buy his air in a bottle. He can't threaten you like that. The Dark here I call Not Nilk must always lay down a trick and gain consent that supports its trick. Amazingly, most people here buy its air in the bottle freely, and they feel very good about it after making the transaction. They can't see that it's just air, and they think they've bought something of value. People in Vermont have placed it in a safe deposit box in carbon-neutral banks. That's literally what was sold in 2020, air in a bottle. But it was labeled hazmat, and people took authorities' word for it. In a way, they chose to be tricked. It's not one-sided at all, though. Both parties must come together in the car battery to make the spark. It takes two to tango. Another one of these Humpty Dumptys carried forth for its dual meaning, perhaps. The asshole Dark knows how this reality works, and it has thousands of additional buttons and levers at its disposal in 2023. The nature of its trick is to get real people to play its game by taking a side. When that happens, people pile onto either side of its magnetic poles, and their emotions, like hatred or fear, for example, produce some sort of not nilk aurora borealis, which to it is some form of sustenance that the dark energy or the dark reality needs. But it's not just the outer ring or the screen. It's trying to always push down, extend down to get closer to your heart-based center, to your personal reality bubble. It will always try to move its trench forward. The org chart on the asshole Dark goes down many levels, and it will try to get right up next to you if it can. Most levels have no idea how they're serving the overall reality ass crack that needs to feed and needs to corrupt real people at the same time. These minions at most or all levels are simply cells in its overall body that can't see the whole. Almost no one is getting instructions or orders like we used to think everybody was in on it. Those on the frequency just basically do what the screen wants or what the Not Nilk wants. Those on that frequency believe they're doing the best they can, and they're very happy with their new digital sound system that they've given the church, as the old pipe organ tubes are hauled off to become spent plutonium canisters for 3 Mile Island. At some point in their lives, a small percentage of people start to see something isn't quite right about this place. Somebody may come forth and, wait a second, this is the 20,000th walk in a row without a cure. I have 10 damn drawers full of these damn t-shirts, walk t-shirts with corporate logos all over the back. Where's the t-shirt that will finally say, because of all my damn walking, we cured this son of a bitch? Where's that t-shirt? What is going on here? This is my 6th presidential election. And as the parties flip back and forth and trade the baton of power, wait a second, nothing's changed and nothing ever seems like it's going to change. Why do supposedly trusted sources of information feed me bullshit backstories all the time and give me nonsense whenever I investigate something important? Look here. It says, this book tells me Robert E. Lee kept lining up his massive armies in gray coats to be slaughtered by the North. That's what it's saying here. But a third grader playing army men in the back sandbox would have changed over to guerrilla tactics at the end of the first month. Papa, why did they lie to us like this? They do it because they must do it that way. Gathering the energy it needs must be derived through a trick. Once someone begins to wake up to its bullshit tactics, these deceptions and reality anomalies begin to be noticed in the thousands by us. Real people drop veils. They can see right through all the bullshit, like Superman seeing through a wall, and these real people then begin to understand who they really are and what ultimately it's trying to do to you. We come into this reality existence with no prior knowledge whatsoever of who we are, who we were before this existence, what we will be after. Okay, so it's okay to look around to try to get clues that tell you about yourself. And potentially the biggest clue of all time is how this asshole element needs your energy. My gosh, think about that. How powerful are you if this asshole element over here needs so much from you? Think about that. Oh no, here comes Melvin P. again. Look the other way, pretend you don't see him. Hey, Matt, you and me, man, we're the same. Melvin? Don't say that. Don't give me that anymore. We're not the same. But I'm rich and powerful. You are rich and powerful. You're a gigantic slimy fish in a small pond, a Home Depot bucket. You're a big shot here. In the scheme of things, Melvin, that ain't shit. Matt, if a group of us can see right through it easily, then why isn't the asshole dark easily exposed? For a few reasons. The asshole dark is most adept at taking care of malcontents like you, the rowdy pipers who can see. First off, it identified your ilk a long time ago, so don't stop commenting now. It knew who all of us were 10 years ago through our likes and comments. It knows who the real people is here. Maybe that Santa Claus thing. It knows when you've been sleeping. It knows when you've been a truther. It's a damn stuffed Lenin in of itself to a degree. Okay, it has us identified and pegged. But then it knows how to deal with most of us. It generates a bunch of useless, distracting horse shit that matches what each group of real spirits are most interested in. It does this artificially that no real world could do. For some like you, it becomes a conspiracy generation machine where it dangles a million carrots that all say, like sirens crying out, come and investigate me, and you'll get close. I promise this sick, slimy carrot. In a way, other than for energy creation, it does create some sort of conspiracy for its own survival in order to hide the ultimate truth of this place. That's another reason it creates the conspiracy, not just to put people in camps, but in a way to protect itself, to make sure people get stuck at level 1 and 2 and never get to the 9th inning. In a weird way, it almost seems to be contractually bound to this reality, to serve its role. As long as it does its job and keeps real spiritual beings in the dark, then it's allowed to feed. I mean, it will need a waffle party reward. It's not just going to do it for no remuneration, whatever that word means, right? Each individual conspiracy investigation to those that it's crafted for is fascinating, and it's dark, and in a way it's addictive, and it's exciting to real spirits who gladly jump into its stinky rabbit holes. The asshole dark is expert at knowing just how much truth to give away, just enough to leak out to this group or to that group to keep these little conspiracy Sherlocks happy and to keep the investigating spirits, number one, very interested in continuing to waste their life looking at its crafted bullshit, and number two, believing and the real spirits hoping that just a little bit more investigation, Matt, if I just do a little bit more research, it's going to lead to a big win. No, out there, you see, out your reality heart center reality bubble, that out there is you're getting closer to the screen. There's never a big win out there. That's a rule. When certain conspiracy gets old, or they're just not getting a lot out of it, dark reality then is designed to bring forth and spawn new and fresh topics. That's maybe a big purpose of the whole C the V thing. A big purpose of it to simply satisfy needs in the areas that we've been talking about for the last half hour. The old man in the chair disciples, remember that guy? That community is still throwing around they're using the word genocide in regard to renting the Carl Weathers movie. Okay, there likely was some increased increased injury, increased incidents. Of course. But is that the same as a mass dinosaur extinction event? That's what they're saying. No. Do I even need to clarify that a few emails I'm getting per week about this celebrity just went down? Is that the same as a mass dinosaur extinction event? They're not the same thing. And that's what we were told. The old man in a chair alkalites, those with that hardcore belief of what we were just talking about, they don't understand how the asshole dark operates. They're a group of vampire hunters waiting for Dracula in a park at high noon. He don't come out in the dark. They don't even fundamentally understand their enemy. What the man in the chair disciples said would happen can never happen in this reality. People say, blah, 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 dropping over in mass. It violates how we know it needs to operate in terms of how it needs to create energy for itself. There is no polarity when something becomes so one-sided. Cement needs a variety of materials to harden up, brought together by water. It must not be obvious. It must deliver the Goldilocks. It must play the middle, so the sides come together in conflict, in hate, in fear, so it can harvest the energy it needs. It must give each side just enough evidence so they dig in and never come over to the other side. The more they fight, the fatter it gets. Polarity, camps, duality. Without a doubt, its most impressive quality is how it always seems to know the exact level of what it can get away with, and almost always brings the right mix of ingredients to each group to create its Goldilocks. There's a subtle truth in Matrix 4, the last one called Resurrections, along these same lines. When in pods, in the new one, Trinity and Neo's power, when they were in pods, the architect, or not the architect, this one's called the analyst, was saying their power increased exponentially when they were, quote, brought together in close proximity. And until they were rescued, the analyst kept bringing them together in close proximity. They were being used by the machine world to create some sort of energy, just as we've been used by the assholes in, quote, the real world to create the energy that it needs. From the movie's perspective, the one must be derived from 2 into 1. We're both, in the first through 3 matrices, it seemed Neo and Smith together were the one. It's not Smith or Neo. That's the big debate of less filling tastes great on the internet. Well, no, it was Smith was the one. Neo was the one. No, obviously the 2 into 1. They both were the one. And it's very similar in Matrix 4. As them in close proximity, 2 into 1 creates power. Again, the key principle we talked about 20 minutes ago is it doesn't matter what is real on the ground level, or who is right about what is real, or how it's done. We are so far past that unless you want to keep serving it. It doesn't matter because at the highest level, at the outer ring, that's the lowest level, but you know what I mean, the outer screen ring, it's all not real. Doesn't matter if there's a real man in a hospital or not. Doesn't care who got it right in analyzing its news events. It only cares that your analysis led to choosing a side. It only cares that your analysis got you to dig in and pick a side. It simply cares about bringing the Neos and the Trinities together in close proximity, so the sparks start to fly that it sucks up as food. You know who's been responsible for baking the most bread for the asshole dark over its history? Us. Conspiracy people. Jack Burton. Who? Jack Burton. You and me. We have to stop serving it. One more minute on the old man in the chair nonsense. Let's just use this following example. Let's say everybody, like everybody in the West, everybody has 10 immediate family members of the same age or older. If just 2 or 3 of them, 2 or 3 relatives became like, what is it? Was it the opening line of A Christmas Carol? It must be known that old Marley was as dead as a doornail, or what follows cannot be understood. If all of them, 2 or 3 of them out of everybody had just had a few incidences of a few people in their family became old Marleys and just fell over. And some people did have that happen, but some people in creating its Goldilocks environment. If that happened to everybody, it would have qualified as the mass Geno event that the fearmongers predicted and talked about. But if this were to occur, this is why it can't happen per the way it operates. If that were to occur, the asshole dark does not have the conditions that generates the energy that it needs. It becomes too one-sided if that were to have happened. And then everybody would have formed a negative opinion about what the movie rental was all about. Do you see how it's so obvious that it can't operate this way? Is it just me? mean, these are basic observations as to how this thing has operated for 10 years. We should be ashamed of ourselves for being so far behind. It's for this reason that the mass geno will never occur. That big of an event doesn't feed it. It gets nothing out of a population of Jacob Marleys. It doesn't care about that. To get millions of us to believe that's what it wants, though, all it has to do to get millions of us to believe, oh, that's what it wants, Matt, just carve some lines in a damn Georgia stone. That's all you need to do. Get Melvin P. to fake a Freudian slip during a TED Talk. That's all you need to do. Oh, one of these variables must go to zero. Oh, they're going to get everybody. Come on, man. They laugh their asses off. They don't need to craft more than a second-grade trick to suck us in. If you're throwing rubber ducky screaming, I had 2 relatives, or 3 or 4, that were Jacob Marley, which I'm almost certain it was because of the renting of that movie. I believe you. Okay, that certainly could have been the cause. But that's rare. That's creating its Goldilocks. It has to create that so it puts its needle right down the middle so people choose camps. Okay, well, what's the goal of Not Milk in terms of all it does in this regard? To just Jacob Marley populations, or to rub balloons together to create the type of energy it needs to feed? So those that take a certain viewpoint of, say, the old dude in the chair, it had no opportunities over the past 50 years to Jacob Marley giant populations. No, it had no opportunity to do that. It had to wait for, come on, man. If it really wanted that, could have done that 50 years ago, maybe 100 years ago. Come on, dude. Come on, sir. In regard to what we're talking about now, it needs just enough incidents to satisfy the Goldilocks environment or conditions that it needs so people start fighting and digging in. It doesn't mean that the conspiracy side is going to be equal in number as the other side. It just needs the conspiracy side to be big enough or to give them enough evidence so they become a catalyst in this regard. Okay? It needs just enough incident on one side so the anti-Carl Weathers people can get angry, yet not quite enough incidents so the rest of the population comes around to what that person is saying. Okay, this is not a new tactic. It does this every single time, going back decade after decade after decade. The incident must be low enough so the point of view that, say, our group would come up with is considered radical or crazy among the normal folk. It also seems to adjust the circumstances almost individual by individual, which is impossible in a real world. My family, it was just, if there would have just been a couple more things that I could have made. No, it just one little thing happened. My uncle, 80 years old, went into the hospital for 4 or 5 days. It was because of a Roto-Rooter type plumbing pipe situation. And, but just one thing, maybe 2 to 4 months after he rented the movie, but if I start talking about there could be a correlation, then I'm deemed nuts. See, if it would have happened to just 1 or 2 more in a large Philadelphia family that I don't talk to anymore, but old, decrepit, out of shape, fat people, then I would have had something. But it just was enough where the moment I started talking about it, could there be a link, immediately shut down. How it knows how to play Goldilocks, almost even individual by individual, is so unnatural, it's unbelievable. As I said, the rest of the family today, still old, fat, and unhealthy. And they're all doubled. They all double punky boosted. They got no problems. That doesn't mean others did not have problems with family members. I'm saying it's miles and miles and miles off what the old men in a chair people predicted. And I'm asking you to see the Goldilocks nature of what it's actually out to do. It's not actually, it doesn't care about Jacob Marling anybody. It's out to feed. In almost all cases, the Goldilocks it presents is impossible, otherworldly, unnatural. We've seen this phenomenon in all other areas. In most families or groups, there's only one person who can truly see. Okay? In one friendship circle, there's others that might be interested in a certain conspiracy here or there, but in most situations, there's only one in a family that can see what we do. See, if there were 2 or 3 or 4, then that group could gain consensus if my friend group, I'm the only one. My family group, I'm the only one. There are exceptions. I've had people come say, my husband and my wife, and if you have that situation with a spouse, that is extremely rare and incredibly lucky. That is not typically the case. Matt, are you saying it creates even injury or creates illness or it creates some Jacob Marleys as a means to an end? It doesn't care about those things directly in and of itself? Yes, of course. That's exactly what I'm saying. The Georgia Stones were a total deception. People are still talking about them. You've got to be kidding me. How it must do business has become obvious at this point. We've observed it closely for 12 or more years. Our progress during many of these years has been at a snail's pace, but at least the people here continue to move forward. They are open-minded to new ideas, and they look to correct their mistakes. That's all I could ask of you. That's all you could ask of me. We're going to get most things wrong, but then we're going to narrow and whittle down where we need to go. And most importantly, the worry about yourself aspect, the only thing that matters is 2 sentences, and that's ultimately what we already have. But we're going to correct our mistakes and move forward. Most of the truth calm is stuck in some sort of Mobius loop. We know how it must operate by now, yet basic principles are never learned by most of the truth calm. Take the news story of soccer players. Jacob Marley are falling over in the middle of games that started coming up 6 months ago or so. The old man in a chair disciples, they scream, look, Matt, this is the beginning of it. Look, it's the starting of the big event that we've been calling for. Any third grader in the truth calm should know by now or be able to observe that it's simply playing its same game over and over again, decade after decade in a slightly different way. These soccer players falling over, whatever it may be, and they recover, or Jacob Marley's, and I'm sure that the Tatanka incident, people are pointing at that along the same vein here. Matt, that's obviously why he fell over in that football game. That's obviously what's going on here. It's Goldilocks. It's evil genius and in the extreme. It's giving those groups just enough so they can really dig in, double down on their position. Where, of course, once again, the incident rate, I'm sorry, is not nearly enough for anybody normal around us, anybody in your group of old friends or family, to give any real credence to what you're saying about the sinister nature or intent. It's always playing Goldilocks. What a coincidence. What a coincidence. It's playing this one like it's played everything else in the past. But we're too dumb to see repeating patterns. It's played right down the middle on 5,000 things. I told you, Matt, the Trilateral Commission is sophisticated. Oh, sure. Yeah, that's it. I forgot what secret societies they had access to. Well, what do you think it is? I've been clear, very clear for a long time now. Is reality itself at a metaphysical level we don't understand, never will understand, and don't need to understand. If you feel the need to understand it, have fun feeding it. Again, the Goldilocks principle by itself gives it away. I mean, it's just impossible. It's always giving both sides just enough so they can lock in their positions and never, ever come over to the other side. Those in our own camp were trained to love, and those in opposing camps were conditioned to hate. Same playbook every single time. Sure, a real world could pull this off. Again, what is this methodology? This is how energy in this realm that's best suited for the asshole dark is created, processed, and manufactured. The purveyors of mass geno haven't learned a darn thing about how the dark reality works. If you're putting your efforts into the conspiracy of the month, you're playing its game and you're frolicking around on its field, and you're looking for a reward. Another waffle party? But I thought only the assholes like Melvin P. went to waffle parties. I think the truthers that spin wheels and actually serve it, they're looking for the waffle party reward too. The waffle party is finding out about yourself. And then you say, by my heel, I care not what the damn not milk does. It can't touch me in any way that's important. If conspiracies or events on the ground are going to continue to be looked at, it must be viewed as part of the whole of the Not Nilk's main or only plan or few desired outcomes for real spiritual beings. The event taken in isolation or with a magnifying glass being put on it is what it wants. If people will continue to do it, I will continue to do it. Again, I'm not serving super Jedis here. I'm trying to lead people from 4th grade up through 12th. But this is a pursuit that don't award no diploma. You ain't going to get no diploma, Matt, speaking like that. You didn't bring that Philly accent into your classroom, did you? No, I could leave it at the door for turn it on and off on the playground. But you will give yourself your degree. You will graduate yourself. And then you'll cook yourself waffles. The sheer amount of conspiracy it has produced in order to distract real souls and generate the energy that it wants crossed the absurd level in 2001, beginning with you know what. It's creating conspiracy now at ludicrous speed, and it's gone plaid. There's a multi-level conspiracy attached to almost everything of significance. Not just one conspiracy where people like Matt believe a certain thing about the Titanic and regular people believe a certain thing, or my dad believes to this day, still believes Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. There's multiple levels inside each for different levels. No real world could do this. It's simply not possible. People are still sending me notifications about news events because I don't watch the news. Cake in a lake events regarding something at a mall or something that you'd say bang in a mall. These things, I guess, are still going on, but they say every few weeks or so. People like Chuck, like I've said, have cataloged hundreds and hundreds of these. And I said every single one I've looked into, I've only looked into, say, 15% of what he's cataloged, but every single one I've looked into, so this looks like complete bullshit. But again, it's the sheer magnitude of all of these thousands and thousands of things across all these different genres of, quote, being faked. No real world can do this. Going back to, like, say, mall events, you kind of know what I mean. If all they had to pull off, all they had to put all the resources, that's all they had to do were the damn mall events since 2012. They had nothing else on the plate. That'd be pretty hard. It'd be pretty extremely hard to do. Do they have other things, Matt? They have 10,000 other things that they're juggling at the same time that they're managing to pull off. Not 10 or 15, 10,000. Oh, and hundreds of those are multiple level conspiracies. Okay. The world out there at the periphery, we call the screen. Here's the conclusion, or one of the conclusions. At the screen level, it couldn't possibly be real. Not only does most of the truth think the amount of conspiracy is possible, they believe thousands of massive conspiracies can be pulled off by quasi-government organizations and secret societies, all without ever making a major mistake or being exposed. They didn't pull off like 25 things. No. Over the last 40 years, we're looking at thousands. If you expand your definition, tens of thousands. For example, all the countries that use the vector. The Indian Space Agency uses the vector, and all the potential levels of where things would need to be coordinated or covered up, and all. So you can easily get to tens of thousands. I'm not overreaching with my number. Well, Matt, okay, no real world could do it. The only other possibility, I only have a coin here of two sides. Then you're saying it's real. No, I'm not. It's not. That's the duality at once. It wants to. Well, if all this stuff can't be faked and coordinated by the secret societies, then you're saying it's real. No, I'm not. I'm just saying we'll never know. There's things here outside of perception, things that we'll never understand as to how the outer screen, the outer ring, the screen reality sees to all of this madness. Again, one last time, if you want to keep trying to figure it out, then it will be very happy that's going to be your pursuit. And again, what I alluded to earlier, which again is not directly relevant to this presentation, but that weird-ass horseshit where I said, okay, at the screen level, it may have figured out a way so Tony's facts, or you would call, for lack of any other word, reality is different than mine at the same time. Who knows? If it has figured that out, it would explain a lot, wouldn't it? We've noticed many other strange, quote, reality anomalies that don't line up with a toy box between the bookends, real world. So when you go to do your research, for example, if you have a belief set as to what you believe happened or how you think the world works, and think of the bias we have in this community at this point, Dark Reality, Melvin P. I mean, we carry more bias than anybody. If we have a certain belief set and we take that out into the research as to trying to figure out what went down, we carry a bias of some sort. Oh, reality can see right through us. It will feed you the evidence that supports your position artificially. It will give you what you want to find just as you go looking for it. No real world could do this. You tell me a conspiracy researcher who was, say, interested in a topic or carried a certain bias for topic A or topic B. So you tell me one example of someone in our community that went out to research it and they found nothing. They said, I went to look at this and that, and it's incredible. I couldn't find anything. I was so jacked up to research mud flood and buried things and buried Roman baths. And I went out to the internet, and it didn't give me anything. Does that ever happen? No, it happens 100% on the other side of the coin. What does that tell you? Jeff, the number one 7-Eleven job application researcher for the last few years, and he must do it as a hobby. He will just go out and look at old videos. Every single time it leads him to a rabbit hole. And it's so unbelievable. He'll send it to me and be like, look where this led. Every single time. Let me say it again. No real world could do this. We've seen the term self-evident thrown around before. Maybe on certain documents. The term self-evident. Well, this takes the cake. Okay, what we've been talking about here. Goldilocks. Go to do the research. It'll feed you what you're looking for. It becomes self-evident that to a degree, it is potentially like Schrodinger's cat. If you jump in and try to prove this or that, or you already have a prior belief set of what happened to that football player, then you go try to confirm your belief, well, you'll go find what you want, but then your neighbor at the Schrodinger's cat same time will find what he expects to find. And then Tony will go find the Popular Mechanics article and what he expects to find. And understand, Matt, you're not saying Google's set up to show the same for you, and of course, for certain events. It will lead certain normal people to certain wells. But nevertheless, we're still able to find what we want, aren't we? Okay, even if you believe what I'm saying about the outer screen in two different realities at the same time, even if you believe that's absolute horse shit. Just in general, TruthCom, it's not relevant to this conversation. This conversation is about energy. Stop feeding it, please. The ground level analysis of what happened or didn't is feeding it. Keep spinning wheels if you want here, or call my position a cop at, Matt, he can't get it, so he's just saying it'll never be figured out. Okay, you caught me. I'm too dumb to figure it out, and I don't really believe what I'm saying. So continue to feed it, and it'll reward you with a waffle party. The definition of insanity is what many of us are practicing right now. During the Kobe event that happened, I have no sense of time anymore. I don't know, 4 years ago? Something like that. I remember very clearly, and it's the comments that came back, and I'll always remember this video, saying, will there ever be, and we had no idea at that point what was coming in terms of, 2020 and and I said, well, you think there'll ever be we were getting just a hint as to how reality, the dark reality screen really works. Will there ever be a major news story ever again that does not just riddled with conspiracy, like that doesn't, so people can take sides? And people came forth in the comments and said, yeah, you're right, Matt. There's not going to be a major event ever for the rest of our lives that's not going to be riddled with conspiracy. So by that notion, it's not done generating what it generates. All right, it's the Lucy chocolate factory in terms of conspiracy generation. Whatever, mud flood, Tartaria, buried Roman baths, or it's not done, okay? And it will continue those chocolates will continue to come down the assembly line. Now, hopefully you walked off the job a long time ago, but you can keep trying to shove them in your mouth if you want. And then after you've played its game, in the truth community and you're all used up, it will send you a thank you card for playing for so long. For some truthers, it's going to send a honey-baked ham over to your house, like the prized turkey at the end of the George C. Scott A Christmas. Man, it wasn't just the George C. Scott. It was written by Dickens, you dumb son of a beach. It was. All I know is the movie version. The Asshole Dark has crafted a variety of different types of spiritual squid games suited to different types of real people here on Earth. The bait for each game is that entity's favorite topic of investigation, or that real person's, even addiction, or what they like to look into, or what they would be most attracted to get deeply involved in. There's major addiction in the truth community, and it goes along with addiction to fear, no doubt about it. We'll talk about that some other time. The real person in general that sees how strange and weird and artificial the world is, then artificially, the reality will introduce conspiracy to that person, and it will bring forth the bait most suited to that type of person. Some bait is just simple distraction. Others, as discussed, leads to the forming of camps, or the digging in, or it tries to manage people so they produce the type of energy that the Asshole Dark needs, while at the same time distracting real spiritual beings away from what they're supposed to accomplish for themselves in life. In more than one way, these not-nil goals go hand in hand. The energy it needs and the distraction go hand in hand. Can you even have one without the other? It could be debated. The energy it is given means a real person was at some point distracted from what they're supposed to be doing in life. Unfortunately, most of us in our community who sense the presence of the Asshole Dark, and unfortunately even those at the higher levels, continue to take its bait and continually resort back to, quote, pedestrian means to explain what's going on. They'll resort back to the toy box to understand how it's all happening. The answer is not in the toy box. We know that now. The answer is not between our reality bookends. In this body, in this avatar, we're extremely limited in terms of what our senses bring us. Is a joke. To expect or demand all answers here is ridiculous. The wise man or woman here says, I'm not capable in this manifestation or form of understanding everything, but I might be able to understand all about myself as this incarnation. I don't have to understand the outer ring. But unfortunately, what happens as the conspiracy gets bigger and bigger, which we've seen over the last 10 years, encompassing more areas of society and culture, more groups that have to be in on it, than to the regular conspiracy person, then there's only one way of understanding what's going on. More and more people have to be in on it. That's ridiculous at this point. More and more people, the only way, Matt, these are so big now. Look what even they did with C. More and more people have to be getting orders. No, the C really gave it away. Okay, it's now any sort of coordination like we, quote, used to think. The C gave it away. I mean, as impossible. Do I have a genius explanation? What is the download? What is tuning yourself to the radio frequency? Or, I don't know, but that's probably closer to what's happening. And we don't have to figure it out either. That's the point here. Okay, what was believable to a degree as to how things were being pulled off in 2008 is absurd today. Whatever is happening to guide people, as I said, is more of a download, or they choose per their free will to get on a frequency, and they know not what they serve and really know not what they do. Those who are built to be on the radio station, like something that's different than you, a George Bush or an Ellen or a Lady Gaga or whatever, those people might be built to be on the radio station. We could debate this in other videos. No, they're real people, Matt. They just lost their way and entered under the dragon's wing. Okay, but it doesn't matter because they're on the frequency and they're going to choose to be on the radio station and do what the Asshole Dark wants all the time. And, some of them I don't think have a chance, at least in their current form or manifestation, to ever get out of it, where some people think we're trapped and all that stuff, but there's no doubt the best chance of succeeding, whatever you call success here, the best chance of winning or getting out or whatever your belief set is people like us not Melvin. There's no question about that. You should be thrilled about the situation that you're in. Back to what we were talking about, where the outer ring may be presenting like a different reality to my friend Tony, or a different set of facts to my friend Tony, or to your cousin. Or, I mean, if this is the case and it has somehow pulled this off, what is on the news to them is real, but it is real to them. But it's Schrodinger's cat potentially at the same time. How could that be, Matt? How could it be fake to us? What? It could be fake to us because we're not on its frequency. This is the same as a ship of fools. We've doved. What was it again? Dived or doved? You can use both. I looked it up. We've dived or doved off the back, yelling back at Isaac. We're off the frequency, off the ship of fools, metaphysically separated from the screen reality. Then to us, it is possible, if you think big enough, that to us it's fake. We're not on the frequency. To him, it's real. But at the same time, okay, I guess I've said that the best I can. Some people will be like, I could see that. Other people like, that is creepy horse shit. But like I said before, if that's true, it would explain a lot, wouldn't it? If the event is actually real in Tony's reality bubble, then it would make perfect sense why he believes what he does, why he absolutely believes, as he seems very smart, rational, he absolutely believes that I am nuts. And I mean nuts. What I say doesn't go into his reality bubble. What he says out of his reality bubble doesn't translate to mine. If these elements are different, it would make sense. You know, is that the lost in translation? Now, I'm not saying the inner rings are different between Tony and I. And of course, as you get closer to the reality bubble, then our realities are going to exactly align. It's the bullshit, the stinky hands and the appendages that come down from the screen where there could be a difference. I'm saying the outer ring in our reality diagram, the screen layer, may have found a way to be different things to different people in order to create the controversy that it needs. Again, what's the point of all this? To produce its energy. And when Tony left the bar and I left the bar, you know, I know how people are going to be. He was a lot more pissed off than I was. If you really want to go out there, the Mandela effect, for those who are affected, could be a giveaway to this very phenomenon. As I've talked about before with Greg, you know, the story he has about the Wizard of Oz, I call it a DEFCON 1 Mandela effect experience, where reality essentially changed right before his eyes. Dorothy and the other three in the Wizard of Oz going to see the witch's castle or whatever. Now they have a gun and they have a bug sprayer and a net and all that stuff. And he has a clear incident where they had none of those things in their hands. No gun, no bug sprayer, no big pipe wrench. Kind of looked away, looked back in an instant, and they did have all of those things. Now, this overwriting of reality is something now that the Mandela Effect community has thousands of, you could say, testimonials of at this point, to different degrees. Maybe not all as dramatic as what happened to Greg. I have personal experiences as well with this sort of thing, but to a lesser degree. So pick one of the famous, obviously fake presentations to us. How many thousands do we have that we could throw a dart at? Things that we just are sure we know are complete BS. Things that we've researched for weeks or months in the past. To my friend Tony, I'm saying maybe it's real. Actually real. Okay, I don't think this is as crazy as it sounds anymore. And there are, again, like little nuances that support this sort of thing. I think it's almost supported because there's almost no other explanation anymore as to why we continuously have the same frustrations. But remember, we've talked about like these people never sit down with you. I put it that way. Tony will never say, okay, Matt, enough of this. You know, any rational person would say, if it wasn't real in his reality, again, the outer screen, any rational person would say, Matt, I'm tired of hearing about all this horse shit. You must have evidence somewhere. Why don't you, I'll sit down with you, book us into the room, and you'll show it to me. I'll give you 2 hours. But that'll never happen. They never will sit down with you, and they're never open. and saying, well, Matt, that doesn't mean that it's real in their reality. It means they're on some sort of download. Or look, again, yes, it's just throwing out a lot of different things here. But the point remains, he never will say, I'm going to come to your house and show me what you have on the old Mac. I'll give you 2 hours because I want to believe, Matt, as a good friend, I want to believe you're not crazy. And I want to believe, Matt, that your evidence is based on something. It'll never happen. I've handed discs to people, and I'll come a year later. Did you? Oh no, I didn't. I didn't watch that disc. Or somebody like Pam's friend, I said, watch the disc. He said this didn't do anything. I don't know what he saw, but what I put on that disc was so overwhelming. The evidence regarding 7-Eleven job application, and I have the ability to frame things in a pretty strong argument. You could say that. I mean, it wasn't just a bunch of horse shit that he was given. He said this didn't move my opinion at all. Who knows what he even saw? If you see what I'm saying, I know this is going way out there, but you don't come here for small thinking. We come here to ponder things that are outside the bookends for most people. All right, we all know that your friend or whatever, they'll never ever really want to sit down with you. And you can never present them. In fact, it's the opposite of that. They won't even let you talk. You can't even get a few sentences out. I've had a family member literally run into the adjacent room. I'm not listening to this anymore, and run away. I'm not joking. So this relates in summary to a few basic principles and some realizations. We know that it's crafting reality the best it can for itself to create loose energy, so it can maybe not just sustain itself, so it can perpetuate itself or grow or get fatter. That's a given at this point. And we have certain principles that we need to make sure we don't violate in this community. Like I'm proposing here, the real or fake principle. If presented by that outer ring, if presented by the screen, it matters not if something is what you would call real or fake on the ground level. It matters not what you would see if you lived a block away. Oh, that event that's going on the news, I live a block away, and I'm going to run over there and run through the yellow police tape, and I'm going to see for myself what's really going on. The real or fake debate is the lower level of where it wants us at this point. In fact, the more attention we give this particular level in terms of research or focus, the more it generates the energy that it craves most. Now, this for me is the culmination of almost 15 years of close study as to how what we call the dark reality works, and most importantly, what it's out to do to you, what it wants from you. The good news in the end is it tells us tremendous amount about ourselves, and the news we're getting is basically the best news of all time. It can't be explained in terms of the details. It will never be figured out. It will tempt you that it can be figured out. One last time, if you want to just call this a cop-out, there's a lot of Pied Pipers waiting for you, say over at BitChute, and you can get right back to generating the loosh that it needs and wants. It will one day send you a honey-baked ham for your efforts. Thanks for listening.